Hi, welcome to the Ambient iPad. Let's make some music. The last few jams have been a little more complex, so I want to keep it simple for this jam. Just going to use a piano sound from the Mark II Mellotron and just a couple of effects from Imaginando. The signal chain is the Mellotron M4000D Mini. Its master mono analog output goes into a Focusrite Scarlett 18i8 interface, which communicates back and forth with the iPad Pro through a USB-C hub that also lets me power the iPad Pro at the same time. So for effects, we're going to use Imaginando. There's only two, I believe, that they make, and I have them. One's a modulation app called DLYM or DLYM, and the other is a tape delay, which I've used millions of times, the K7D. Let's get those set up and then walk through the different piano sounds that are available on the Mellotron. So we have an initialized patch here in Matrix and apeMatrix. What I want to do is I want to change the tempo to 90 because the effects will be synced to the tempo. I also need to change the input to mono rather than stereo. So let's add DLYM or DLYM. Where are you? And I'm going to use a phaser, as I often do with the Mellotron. I have a phaser patch set up. Then let's get to the K7D. I have a lot of different patches set up for this, but one in particular I'm going to use, also synced and ping pong. So it'll be a little more adding to the stereo field because it's a mono sound, and then I will also use Spatializer just to expand the stereo field a little more. Typically when I'm using multiple instruments, I'll use front and back, but for this, since it's just one, the piano, I'm going to use surrounded. I'm not sure why it's grayed out, so let's do this again. Just to make sure that it is connected correctly. All right, and again, we're going to use surrounded. All right. We need to enable the outputs. When you're just using synths or effects and apps within the iPad, you don't really have to worry about that, but it enables them automatically. But when you're using a device that you're essentially sending audio into apeMatrix, you need to enable those outputs. All right. I have all the effects on. I'll walk through them after, but let's start with the piano sounds. This is the Mellotron Mark II piano. So, sounds like a piano. A little bit interesting on the vibrato kind of pitch. Some of that I think is the phaser, but when we listen to other pianos, you hear they don't sound like that at all. So let's switch this over now to the Chamberlin piano. Definitely of a higher fidelity, but I prefer the Mark II piano because it's just a little more rounded and sounds a little more old. There is one more piano on the Mellotron. It's the Mark I piano, and this has some interesting qualities to it. I'm not going to say anything because you'll hear it. So it skips an octave or two there. The reason being is that the Mark II Mellotron had two keyboards with kind of like a wood strip between them or something between them. And traditionally you would play the rhythms that you could get on the Mellotron on the left hand, and with the right hand you'd do some kind of solo or lead over that. So actually I love the sound of the Mark I piano, but that break there is a little different than what I'm trying to do here, which is just kind of a simplistic ambient thing. I will use the Mark I piano at some point. All right, let's switch back over to the Mark II piano, and I'll leave Spatializer on, but let's turn off the K7D and we'll just hear what the phaser sounds like. Let me get that over here so you can see. A very slow rate, although it is synced to the tempo. And let's switch that off, switch on the K7D. Let's move that up over here so you can see that. All right, this is just the K7D. You can hear that ping pong. But when you're playing legato, it's not as dramatic. let's add back in the phaser. So that's the sound. The reverb is being provided by the K7D. I could use an external reverb and also Spatializer, which is essentially a type of reverb. But I wanted to keep it really simple this time. And I'm just gonna kind of just do a jam, improv. I don't really have anything in mind. I mean, I should do some kind of intro. Something like that. We'll stick with 4/4. Let me give it a little Fripp kind of way he would play guitar notes this way. Just changing the rhythm a little. Something like that, and then we'll just do stuff with space in it, some chord thing maybe at some point. All right, I'm just gonna reposition the camera so it's in the traditional angle I use, and I'll just give it a whirl. We'll see what happens. So that was a pretty straightforward jam, just a few effects with Imaginando and Spatializer, just a piano sound. That was it from the Mellotron. I used the Mark II piano, which sounds old enough, even though with the modern Mellotron, it's high quality samples of the original master tape, so ostensibly you're supposed to be getting exactly what happened in the studio at that time, although the tapes are decades old, so you get some of that funkiness in there. Again, the Chamberlain piano sounds a little more realistic, but it just has this brittle quality that didn't really work for this. Same thing with the Mark I piano, which honestly I think sounds the best, but the way it's got that octave or two missing, for this, it really wasn't going to work, which is why I used the Mark II piano. So all you need is a couple of effects, one sound, and you can do a lot with it. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.